Check Podcasts. Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, and this is Chamber Chats, as always, coming to you from the podcasting studio at Czech Television, a Chamber champion. I would like to acknowledge, to begin with, that I live and work in the ancestral unceded territory of the Coast Salish nations, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. And I also want to point out that Chamber Chats is made possible through the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. We love to have conversations with people who do things that are just really cool and really interesting, and especially things that concern the ocean and the waters that surround us here on Vancouver Island. My guest today knows all about the oceans because at one point in her life, she crossed the Atlantic Ocean in a rowboat. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but we want to talk now about the technology involved with a company called Open Ocean Robotics. And Julie Angus is the CEO and founder. Julie, welcome to Chamber Chats, and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for the invitation. I look forward to telling you more about our robot boats and crossing the Atlantic in a rowboat.
Yes, we'll talk about it. So you meet a stranger and you say, "Hi, I'm Julie," and somebody says, "What do you do? What's your company do?" What's your answer?
Yeah, well, open ocean robotics is about understanding our oceans sustainably, and we do that using uncrewed surface vehicles that can go out and collect data for extended periods of time, and they can go out and big seas, even potentially hurricanes, staying out there for weeks at a time. And this is super important because 80% of our oceans are unexplored, unobserved, unmapped, and that makes it challenging for ocean industries and also for protecting our oceans. So we offer services collecting data for environmental monitoring, marine mammal monitoring, and security and surveillance.
Yeah, when you talk about the things we don't know about the ocean, that's why your company and what you do is so important. I think in an interview I did with Kate Moran at Ocean Networks Canada, it was pointed out that we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the seabed on our own planet. So that's the kind of stuff that you do. But so these are robots that go out, as you said, and you do things like you assist ships that are traveling with their fuel efficiencies. Tell me how you do that.
Well, our vessels are a platform for a lot of different sensors that can monitor things in the ocean. So they can monitor ocean currents, they can monitor weather patterns. So having information like that can be very helpful for ships to be able to plot the most fuel efficient routes. So that's not a service we offer right now, but that's certainly something that we can offer in the future, and with the sensor suite that we've already had out on the open ocean and working effectively.
This is this is a brilliant thing that you've developed here. It's quite amazing. So we're going to kind of delve into this a little bit deeper, though. But when you're gathering that data on the water, how does it get back to you?
Yeah, no, great question. So communication is very important. We have redundancy in communication. So we have satellite communication, we have cellular communication, and we have radio. So we can operate our boats from our control room here in Victoria, and it could be anywhere on the ocean. And that's satellite communication that is allowing us to control the boats, change an autonomous route, or take actual remote control of it, get that data back in real time so that we can understand how the boat is performing, but also that we can understand the ocean that it's monitoring and, provide those insights that can then be taken action upon.
Yeah, can you just kind of walk me through the process that arrived you at this brilliance that you said, well, we need to gather this stuff, we need to know this, we need to get out there on the water, we need to make it happen, we need to bring it back. How long did that whole process take to get to where you are now?
Well, I think the idea that we need better ways to monitor our oceans has been something that's sat with me for a long time. I can remember when we rode across the Atlantic and we spent 5 months on the ocean, and you can't help but think nobody sees this part of the ocean. And as a result, we really don't understand what's going on out there. We can't monitor the impacts of human activity or climate change. And what you can't measure, you can't protect too. So, this knowledge that there's got to be a better way to go out there and understand our oceans. And then, We had a previous boat company designing offshore rowboats primarily, as well as sailboats, so recreational boats. And really, the idea for open ocean robotics and an autonomous boat was sort of a marriage of those two things, having that expertise in designing small boats that work well with minimal energy input. Anything human powered, we can only exert so much energy, and same thing for solar powered. You can only get so much power from the sun. Combined with that desire to find a better way to monitor our oceans.
A couple of specific things I want to ask you about. You have the ability to monitor illegal fishing activity, and you also have the ability to monitor and respond to oil spills. Tell me how that happens, both of those.
Yeah, so the boats are a platform for a variety of different sensors. So for monitoring other vessels, for example, for illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing enforcement, we use cameras largely. We also have AIS. You could also use acoustics. So we've been doing a multi-year project that's supported by a U.S. philanthropic organization called MPA Bots, and it's designed to monitor marine protected areas. And right now there's a global initiative to protect 30% of our oceans by 2030 in these marine sanctuaries, giving the ocean really an opportunity to rebound in some of these key areas. But without monitoring or without enforcement, in many cases, that's meaningless. So this initiative is looking at how we can, affordably, sustainably, safely provide that using robot boats. As vessels like ours, because it's probably really the only way that you can go out and have that persistent monitoring. So we in the last deployment that we did with them, we did a 25-day continuous deployment that was in a maritime sanctuary in Hawaiian waters. And we ran our boat autonomously the whole time there, 24/7. It's collecting data. It's collecting camera data, so it can see the vessels that are in that area. You can identify potentially the activity that's going on the vessel, and it's also collecting oceanographic and environmental data, because of course understanding those key maritime environments is also very important, so that we can understand their health, as we monitor them. And that's, similarly for detecting oil spills. We can have oceanographic sensors that can detect hydrocarbons, and we have modular sensor bays, so we can plug and play different types of sensors depending on what we want to measure.
So when you detect this illegal fishing or the oil spills, you report that to the appropriate authorities and then they deal with it. Is that what happens?
Yeah, so in the projects that we're doing, this is still a pilot project. This technology is still very new, and looking at ways in which it would work in conjunction with MPA managers. But there's multiple things that can be the outcome of a detection of something that might be an illegal activity. So one is we send that information back in real time, and it can be an alert to the authorities that could then do an intervention, which could mean going out to that vessel to confront it and to determine what indeed it is doing, or it could meet that vessel when it comes to shore at the port. Another one is monitoring. So if you see vessels continuously doing what you think are suspicious activities, it increases, the warnings around that, and heightens the monitoring that would be done for those vessels.
So the organization is called Open Ocean Robotics, but there is work done in areas where the ocean always isn't open. For example, the Arctic. We'll talk about that next. Julie Angus is our guest today. She is the founder and CEO of Open Ocean Robotics. So, Julie, we're talking about things that happen on open water where you're detecting climate change indicators and things like that. But you work in the Arctic too. Please tell me about that.
So we are interested in working in the Arctic. We have not had any deployments
Hmm.
there yet. Of course, because of the long coastline that Canada has, the longest coastline in the world, and much of that is in the Arctic. It's a real priority for us, and I think one of the advantages we have with our USVs that you mentioned is they can operate in confined waters as well as out in the open ocean. And I think that's one of the advantages of having, a solar powered vessel compared to other endurance vessels that might be wind or wave powered, because you have that ability to store your energy in your battery bank and then disperse it as you need it. So in many cases, driving our solar powered boat is very much like driving a car, in that you can make, precise turns, you can control your speed, whereas, driving a sailboat, when it's just under sail power is of course, you need to tack. You don't have that quite that same precision control. So that opens the doors for us to really, do coastal work, do work in where there's more obstacles, and work in the Arctic as well. And so that is something that, we're actively exploring and looking at how our USVs can address that need.
Yeah, we look forward to that time too. Where's the cleanest water in the world, do you think?
I don't know. That's a good question. We haven't monitored all the waters in the world yet. I think we probably, off as you go offshore, definitely, there's cleaner waters than in some maybe local areas that are closer to higher populated areas where waste might be disposed of in different ways. But having said that, there's obviously a lot of pollution offshore as well, whether it's areas where currents converge, and you have garbage that is collected, or even microplastics, or even when you talk about pollution, it can extend beyond the things that we think like plastic and things like that. But noise pollution, right? With increased use of our waterways, that increases the noise, and that impacts marine mammals who are dependent on acoustics for communication, for hunting. So that's actually something that we're also very active in, is monitoring noise levels, and monitoring for marine mammals by listening to them, listening for their vocalizations.
How many of your units would be deployed at any given time?
So the most we've deployed at any time is 2 units. Definitely moving forward, you could deploy, multiple units, 5 or 10 at a time, and that's really the vision that we have for our company, is being able to produce, these USVs where you can deploy a fleet of them, and that gives you the ability to monitor a larger area of ocean and to get more accurate data, because the more USVs you have, the more you're able to determine the location of, say, a marine mammal you found, because you're able to correlate all of these different data sets. So I think that's one of the exciting things about our technology moving forward as we scale, as we produce more vehicles, is being able to increasingly deploy them in these fleet formations.
Yeah, how long can they be deployed?
They can theoretically be deployed for, months at a time, because they are solar powered. They recharge on the ocean from the sun that they collect, the energy they collect there. In reality, it depends on the sensor payload. Propelling a boat, powering sensors, it all uses energy, and you have to be able to balance the outgoing with the incoming. If you're able to do that, the limiting factor is generally biofouling. So growth on the hull, of that would slow the vessel down, create drag, or biofouling on the sensors, which might impact their accuracy, cause them to drift.
Where are they made? Who puts these things together?
Yeah, we make them here in Victoria. So we're located here in the Vancouver Island Technology Park. We have a manufacturing space here. We work with a local company to produce the hulls and the decks, and then we create the other components in our facility here, and we outfit them with all the internal electronics and the sensors here as well, and then we test them in local waters. And here in Victoria, we're really fortunate. We obviously have great access to the water, but we also have a variety of ocean conditions. So if we want to have, calm waters, quiet waters, deep waters, or if we want to have, more waves and wind and currents, we can access it all here.
And you, I guess, when the time comes to do maintenance on them, you just send them a signal and say, you type in, come home, or come back, come and see us. And they come back, right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. We launched the USVs from a boat launch ramp. It goes to its the area of interest or on its course. It does its job, and then when it's done, it comes back to the pickup point, which has generally been a boat launch ramp, and then we can pull it up with a trailer and transport it easily to wherever it needs to go.
We all have our eye on the climate these days. Climate and weather are two completely different things, really. I'm a former TV weather guy. I don't know much about that stuff, but I want to talk about the role that your units can play as well in forecasting our weather. Julie Angus is our guest today on Chamber Chats. She is the founder and CEO of Open Ocean Robotics, an organization that puts crafts into the waters and the ocean waters and sends us data back. So, Julie, you do have the ability to, I guess, in a way, analyze climate, but at the same time, you're involved in weather forecasting. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so our vessels have a number of different sensors. Some of those sensors are for monitoring in atmospheric conditions. So we can monitor, wind speed and direction, air temperature, barometric pressure. So being able to, get that data from locations where you wouldn't normally necessarily be able to gather it can provide important insights for weather in local regions and can potentially provide more accurate weather forecasting.
I'm sure there's times when the units are doing shoreline work or on a beach or something, and they get bashed around pretty good. I would say places like Tofino and remote parts of Vancouver Island, other parts of the Earth. Does that have an impact on the condition in which these vessels operate?
So the vessels are designed to be self-righting. They have a proprietary self-righting system that uses buoyancy versus ballast. And that's a combination of the roll bar at the back or stern of our vessel, along with the design of the hull. And this allows it to, if it's capsized in heavy seas, or as you said, near shore and say surf conditions or something like that, it can right itself and it can continue operating and collecting data. And that's really important. And, when we design these vehicles, we really wanted to design them to be able to go out there in the harshest of conditions, because those are the conditions where it's really hard to get ocean data. And so that was the goal, and we've put them into some of those very harsh conditions. We did some of our early testing, off the west coast of Vancouver Island in surf break and in heavy seas, or it capsized repeatedly, and it performed really, really well. So yeah, we're pleased with that aspect of our USV technology.
We also live in one of the areas of the world that is very active seismically. We have a lot of tremor, earthquake activity going on, but your units can also play a role in tracking that activity too, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways in which our USVs can monitor the environment. And so in terms of earthquake detection, there's sensors that can sit on the sea floor and detect slight changes in it that would indicate an earthquake. And our vehicle can stay on the surface of the water, and it can act as a communication hub. So of course, something that's on the seafloor, there's no way for it to communicate outside of that unless it has a link to satellite on the ocean surface. And so it can be a really important communication hub like that. And that, of course, is relevant for, detecting earthquakes or tsunamis. It's also relevant for picking up other key seabed data, such as monitoring tagged fish or other data sets that are collected.
There's so much more we could talk about, so we'll have to have you back for another chamber chat in the future to do that. But we did promise to talk a little bit about you and your husband rowing a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. That was obviously before you had your kids too, I'll bet. But tell me about that whole adventure. That's just it's wild to even imagine. But tell me about it.
Yeah, so Colin and I have had a long history of going out and doing expeditions on the ocean in small boats. And we wrote books about it and produced documentaries. And really, we both love the ocean. We both love exploring it, and we enjoy challenging ourselves. And one of the expeditions that we did was rowing across the Atlantic Ocean from Lisbon, Portugal to Le Mans, Costa Rica. And that was, it was a long row. It was nearly 10,000 kilometers, and it took us 5 months. So, if you can imagine spending 5 months in a small rowboat with your, partner or your work colleague, it's an interesting situation to be in. And of course, it was full of its challenges. As it turned out, it was the worst hurricane season in history up to that point, and we did get hit by two hurricanes, both of them out of season. Well, one was after hurricane season ended, and one was in a part of the ocean that had never before seen a hurricane. It was thought the waters were just too cold for them to form there. So there were challenges, but at the same time, there was so much incredible beauty. It really was an amazing experience, and one that had a profound impact on and how I think about our oceans and the need to protect them.
You went from Lisbon to Costa Rica. That means you also rowed across the Caribbean. So that was a pretty big trip. Tell me about the titles of the books you've written and where people can find them.
Yeah, so the book I wrote on that journey was called Rowboat in a Hurricane. Then another journey that I did was rowing also from the top of Scotland to Syria in the Middle East, and that was about connecting our ancestral homelands. And that book is called Road Trip, ROWED.
Hmm.
Another journey that we did was with National Geographic, and it was about researching the history of the olive tree, and that was a sailing journey throughout the Mediterranean, retracing ancient seafaring routes to see uh, if they brought the olive tree with them and planted them in the different colonies, or if the olive tree was independently domesticated from wild trees. So that was interesting because it combined my science background. I have a master's in molecular biology, with an adventure because we did DNA research to answer that question. And also, we took our young son on that trip. He was 10 months old when we started that journey.
Wow, traveling with a 10-month-old, that's an adventure onto itself. But Julie, thank you for this. Julie Angus is the CEO and founder of Open Ocean Robotics. You can find their website through our chamber website and check out more information about them. And Julie, we'll have you back again to continue this conversation. But thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Bruce. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure. And that's Chamber Chats this time around. We'll see you later.